Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
Hello YouTubers, this is Frederick Lopez. You're on a new movie review of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. This is going to be spoiler filled, so if you want to see a spoiler free review and haven't seen the film yet, check out my initial thoughts and review on the link here. Okay, now this is going to be kind of more spoiler and kind of go more in depth on things. I'm going to start with the cons. It was good, but I thought the pacing and editing choices were a bit odd. Now, I don't know if that's because they took out some scenes from the Ultimate R-rated version or what, but I feel like they had ingredients for a much stronger film. They had all the elements. It's just that they're either put in the wrong place or just kind of brushed upon and really rushed. I do commend the film for being very ambitious, but I feel that they kind of should have spent a little bit more time on certain things, and they could have omitted some other things. Now, that's not to say I didn't appreciate the material that was in the film, but I feel like that the certain dream sequences and flashbacks, as well as future visions, could have been a bit more elaborated on or just omitted. But I understand where they're going with the injustice type of plot and dark side. And it did feed into Batman's motivations to go after Superman, as well as the character of Superman and what he could become. So it wasn't entirely, like I said in my other review, entirely wasted. It wasn't like Thor going into a well and then seeing Ragnarok vision, but it have nothing to do with Ultron or like the Sinister Six elements being really rushed in Amazing Spider-Man. Now, just because the things were rushed in the film, I feel like they still have a strong foundation for Justice League. Other than that, some of the writing was a little bit odd. I followed the story really well, actually. It's just that it was a little bit disjointed. Now, again, that may have been also the writing as far as the editing and the cutting room floor and how they placed things. I feel like they could have made it flow a bit more evenly. It wasn't jarring to me or anything or confusing. It was just, it felt like you were seeing an outline of events instead of a screenplay of a story. So I kind of wish they just let the flow, I just wish they improved the flow of the film. Now, the flashbacks were really cool. I was taken off guard of Bruce Wayne. It opens, first I thought it was a wrong movie because I was used to the other openings like Man of Steel or the Dark Knight trilogy. So when I saw the leaves, I was like, what, am I at the wrong movie? But then I saw the DC logo, so that's different. But I liked the transition there, even though it was a bit odd. But it was nice seeing Bruce fall into the well, and it was very much like the Man Who Fell story, along with like Batman Begins and Batman Forever's flashback scenes. And I like how it was more than just a couple of bats; it was like a swarm of bats. Now I was taken off guard of Bruce being carried up by bats. It was a great image, but I'm glad it was a dream because I was like, this is kind of a little crazy and unrealistic. They would just like attack him; he wouldn't fly up, but still very symbolic nonetheless. The other flashback with the giant bat caught me off guard, and it was just really jarring, but I liked it for one reason. It reminded me of the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel in which Bruce Wayne has certain visions, and that could be just his psychosis and him being Batman and needing to go after Superman, so that kind of aided into the way, that kind of aided in helping us look at the way he thinks. I liked Henry Cavill, like I said earlier, as Superman. I felt like his Clark Kent was a bit more just a regular guy like he is as Superman. Again, it's like the journalist and then Superman, the hero. I liked Amy Adams' role. The subplot at the beginning was a bit crazy, but I like how he saved her. Even though that does get old after a while, I like the beginning scene. It set up the subplot for Lex, and I like the other stuff, how they both connect to Lex Luthor. Now, as far as the fighting, I'm not sure, but I like how they implied that Lex Luthor was the white Portuguese. And it had, like, Lois' story there with a bullet, and then Batman investigating the sex traffickers and weapon dealers, and it tied to Lex Luthor. And it was kind of cool seeing that. And then Superman going after Batman, but unknowingly aware of Lex Luthor trying to kill him. And I also liked how Lex Luthor set up certain events with like manipulating Batman with like you let your family die, and then like Superman as well, setting him up for different accidents. That terror scene was pretty crazy, and how they blamed him for the murders. And but anyways, after the Bruce Wayne thing, the beginning, that first opening act was great. I loved how you got to see the third act of Man of Steel with Zod and Superman fighting, but through Bruce Wayne's perspective, and it really grounded that fight much more. And I felt sorry for the person and people inside Wayne Tower. That really, really was emotional, because you saw the fight, but you're unaware that there's other people in there. And many movies kind of brush over that when there's destruction, so it's just like sad seeing like these people there on a regular day, and then these just two godlike beings just fighting and then just destroying the building, and it's just really sad. And then when he's praying, I mean, again, I've said this before, and I thought this in Man of Steel, but it's very I guess allegorically like 9/11, and it brought some of those bad memories of that day, but it fits into like the post-terror world, like I said in my other review. And also the tone of our world makes it feel real, but also shows the dangers of Superman. So you see as a human, and Alfred even mentions it, about this is how the rage starts, the fever of helplessness, and it turns good men cruel. I forgot to mention my other review. I really, really loved Jeremy Irons as Alfred. He was kind of like a really cool uncle. And I love his wisecrack remarks. He reminded me more of a little bit of the comic book Alfred, as far as like fixing stuff. And then his remarks reminded me of the animated series Alfred. I thought he did a great job. It's hard to follow Michael Caine, but all the Alfreds with Michael Gough, Michael Caine, and Jeremy Irons, they all do their own take on the character, and it was nice seeing another take on the character while still being pretty much the same Alfred we all know and love. Ben Affleck was really good as Bruce Wayne and Batman. He was kind of more the same person instead of like two different personas, but I liked it because you got to see him do some more stuff as Bruce Wayne, and he kind of reminded me more of the comic book Batman and a little bit of the animated series, where his voice is different, but technically he's still a detective. He still investigates stuff whether he's Bruce Wayne or Batman. So I really liked that. But after that, it was deep seeing the worker lose his legs, who later on Lex manipulates him and pretty much like convinces him to go against Superman after he graffitis false god. And Bruce Wayne's unaware about the checks being sent back, so it shows how Lex is manipulating them. Now, Jesse Eisenberg, he did much better than I thought he was going to do. From the trailers and even some of the movie, he's pretty much like Edward Nygma, Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma in Batman Forever, but a little bit of Willy Wonka. My nephew actually was with me when we saw it, and he turned to me and was just like, "He reminds me of Willy Wonka." I was like, "Yeah, kind of." I liked it though, because even though he was just a little bit crazy, he was like a smart type of crazy, like I said in my other review. But the first like 30 minutes of his Lex is really good. It's not until they get to the party where Bruce Wayne's investigating and then he meets Clark Kent that he starts getting like a little bit kind of like cocaine crazy, as I like to call it, where he's just like saying different words and stuff. I felt like it was a little bit toned down in the beginning, and it was really good at the end, but like some parts in between the movie, I feel like they should have told him just to like tone it down a notch or two. But it shows his psychosis, but it ultimately shows like he's smart, but he's also crazy and just kind of like diabolical in a way, as we find later in the film. And I love that line about Zeus, and it makes me wonder if he knew about Wonder Woman there. I also liked how Lex had intel on Wonder Woman and how she's brought in investigating, and it's just kind of showing Diana's showing throughout the film, and Bruce Wayne's curious. But I love the photo, and then the little connection to the Wonder Woman movie where you see Chris Pine, where it's a photo of her in 1918. And I like the other nods to the Justice League members. I like the Flash, Ezra Miller as a Flash. I liked Victor Stone. Miles Dyson plays his dad as Joe Morton from T2. But I liked how I think it's a mother box, which is another Darkseid reference. So that's pretty cool seeing Victor Stone become Cyborg. And then Jason Momoa looked pretty cool as Aquaman. It was a little bit odd with him just swimming there with a trident, but it was pretty cool seeing him like swim off. So I'm curious to see how they're going to meet him, and if they're going to do like the whole Justice League Unlimited or Injustice Gods Among Us story between the Amazonians and like Aquaman's people from Atlantis. Yeah, some of the flashbacks are a bit crazy, but I did like, and I saw this in the trailer. I thought that was going to be the cliffhanger in, but it was a vision of the future and its dark side. There's parademons there, and the Omega symbol. So Superman's either evil or he's under the will of Darkseid. But either way, it's like the Darkseid story mixed in with a bit of Injustice Gods Among Us. Superman has his own regime, captures Batman, and then just like tears his heart out. And that was pretty much like Superman killing the Joker in Injustice Gods Among Us. But what caught me off guard was seeing the Flash in like an armored suit, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm too early." Now I know it's odd inside the movie, and I can see people complaining, but I actually really like that, and I could follow it. But I don't know if it's because I read a lot of comics and know about the characters or what. But I know they're setting up for a universe, and this is something that's going to be in the next Justice League. So I liked how that happened. He said like, "Oh no, I arrived too early," showing that history changed, but also foreshadowing what may come later with Lois and Martha Kent and how Superman acts and what Batman does to him. So in retrospect, it really does fit in the film, and I didn't feel like it was unnecessary. I didn't like roll my eyes or anything. I really liked the scene. It's a great fighting, Batman just shooting up everywhere. That was kind of different, and there's been some complaints about him killing, and I said in my other review that Michael Keaton killed, and so did Christian Bale indirectly. I'm not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean I have to save you. Lets him die. Let's see, Two-Face had Gordon's kid. I'm pretty sure he tackled him off there to get Gordon's kid, and just Two-Face fell to his death. That's dead. I know he didn't shoot the bomb thing, but he pretty much caused Miranda Tate or Talia al Ghul to go off the railing and then just die head on in a crash collision. I'm pretty sure the 18-wheeler guy died when the Batmobile played chicken with him and hit him towards the underpass, so I'm pretty sure he's, in an indirect way, he's killed people. But also, many people don't know, in the earlier comics, like the very early comics in the 30s, he used a gun. So I can understand that. But you also have to understand it's an older Batman. He has a foundation. And just like Dark Knight Returns, he has tanks, rubber bullets. He's just a little bit more brutal in his ways. And even more so, just like Dark Knight Returns and then After Death in a Family, we see a Easter egg of a Robin suit, and it says, "The joke's on you, ha 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 ha." So that means one of the former Robins must have died. I want to see Jared Leto's Joker and Ben Affleck's Batman meet face to face. I think this is going to be really amazing. But we'll have to see. Now, Doomsday. Doomsday was, he looked like an orc from Lord of the Rings mixed in with a bit of a Ninja Turtle and the Abomination from Hulk. Now, it wasn't all bad, but I liked how they had his transformations like the comic, but I just wish that it was more developed. I wish that he looked like the Doomsday from the comic. Now, who's to say he's going to stay dead or not? That's another thing. But I did like how they got his DNA from Zod and how Lex figured that all out. It kind of reminded me of when Kevin Spacey figured out the Fortress of Solitude, or Gene Hackman in the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. And I also liked how Lex was kind of like evil with like wanting different weapons from the government or something imported in. And then the senator, I love that Granny's peach tea quote or whatever. And then the just piss in a jar. That was bad. But he's very, very manipulative. Like, he was kind of like charming, but in a way where he was just like, "Yeah, do this for me. It'd be great." And it's just like, he kind of manipulates people, but then kind of scares them because he's just like, he has so much power where he's able to get away with stuff like that. He's not quite like the other Lex Luthors with like LexCorp and like almost like the Kingpin, but he still has a lot of influence and a lot of pull and is able to get away with a lot of things. I said in my other review that he reminded me of the Lex clone from the 90s comics where he transferred his consciousness to a younger body with hair, and he was a little bit more like the mad scientist Lex. And we got to see that with him experimenting with Zod and stuff and then creating Doomsday. I like that element of it. Yeah, it might have been rushed, it might not have been needed, but you know what? It created a third act that was pretty emotional. Let's see. And then in Smallville, Doomsday was Zod's son, so it makes sense that it's some type of experiment from a Kryptonian being, and why not Zod? That was nice. He was a lot bigger against Superman than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be like a little bit bigger, but he was like really huge. I was like, holy shit. But I also thought it was very, very real. I loved how it was in the real world. You saw like Soledad O'Brien, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Anderson Cooper on CNN. It just felt like it was in the real world, and I loved how international this one was. It wasn't just Superman saving people in Metropolis or America. He was going to Juarez, Mexico. He was going to Asia. He was going to the Arctic. I mean, he was everywhere, like everywhere, and that was nice. He was more of an international hero, and Henry Cavill really did a good job. He was more comfortable in this. I like Lois and Clark's relationship, and most of all, you could see his personal struggle, and he might have been better written too in this one, where he actually cared about people, and then it's like, no matter how hard I tried to save people, no matter how many people I save, it's never enough. And people don't change. Human nature is never going to change. War, famine, politics get in the way, all that stuff. And I really loved how they kind of like grounded him, but showed the dichotomy and the struggle of Superman versus the world. And then there's a lot of parallels to civil liberty issues we have right now in illegal immigration. I loved how they have some of the illegal immigration stuff posted on Superman. He's like the ultimate immigrant, basically. Superman is as a character, Kal-El. And they're telling him to go back home. And he's just like, well, my home's gone, and I'm not sure this is my home. So it's just like, is there really any need for a Superman? And I love the scene Diane Lane has. She does a great job as Martha Kent. She has a lot more to do in this one. But most of all, I loved how she told them, she's like, yeah, you be their hero, you be their icon, their god. Be whatever they need you to be, or be none of it. You don't know the world a damn thing. And that really shows it. Like, he really doesn't. Like, Superman, if he wanted to, could destroy us all. But he was raised by the Kents, so he feels like he has this need to save people. But if he wanted to, he could just take the day off. He could be like Kara Danvers before she became Supergirl. Just be Clark Kent all day. But no, he has this urgent need to always save and rescue people. They even did that in Man of Steel. Now, as far as the pacing as well, Man of Steel is a much more enjoyable film. It's a faster paced film, and you can get through it quicker. However, despite the pacing and editing issues and how slow some parts of Batman Superman may be, I feel like Batman Superman is a better movie, if that makes any sense. Man of Steel is a much more entertaining film, and as a Superman film is great, but there's just some areas, despite all the negative, the good outweigh the bad of Batman Superman being a little bit of a better film, as far as quality-wise with Batman and Superman's characters. The Capitol scene took me off guard. I haven't felt that shock since you thought the Capitol got blown up and Live Free or Die Hard, or like the stadium explosion scene in Dark Knight Rises. Like, that really made my heart sink when the Bruce Wayne's worker's wheelchair blew up, and you saw like the jar of like piss, and the senator was scared, and then like everyone blew up, and Superman didn't see it. Either he wasn't paying attention, like he said, he wasn't looking, or it was maybe with lead, I don't know, but that was just heartbreaking how it just happened all of a sudden. The Superman's there surviving, and you just see the sadness in his eyes that he couldn't stop this catastrophe. And then everybody on the outside thinking that Superman killed all those people. It was such an emotional part, and it shows you how truly evil and diabolical Lex Luthor is. He's a different type of Lex. It makes you wonder what like a Michael Rosenbaum or comic book type of Lex would have been in this movie. But despite some of the little bit of camp in it, it's not like overtly cartoony, as some of the reviewers said. I think the reviews have been way off, and he's not like Loki from Avengers. He's not Riddler. He's not Joker like Cesar Romero. He's a little quirky. He's better than Nuclear Man and the bad guy, whatever bad guy they had in place for Lex Luthor in Superman 3. He's better than that. There's no real estate scam, so there's actually a diabolical plan here that doesn't involve like taking land or doing something stupid like that. He actually just wants to kill Superman. And that was just emotional. And then like him saying that my symbol back home meant hope, and it means nothing now. And Amy Adams saying like, this means something to people out there. This means everything. Hope is all they have. And I loved it when I loved it when he went to the mountain. Now, it was a bit kind of choppy in the editing again, but that moment as a Smallville fan reminded me of season 10, episode 1 called Lazarus, where Tom Welling as Clark Kent saw John Snyder as Jonathan Kent appear building a fence. And that caught me off guard because I thought he was a regular guy, and that was just an emotional scene. And that was a really good scene. It was like the real Jonathan Kent in this scene compared to like some of the stuff he said in the first. but it's almost like he was talking to his dad, and I really loved that and the struggle, and he was dealing with the values that the kids taught him. So he decides to go back. And now and then Lex Luthor. If there's one thing I have against Amy Adams as Lois in this, is that, I mean, Lois has always been kind of like this in some of the films, but they need to do something else with her besides making her a damsel in distress. Make her more proactive, or have her work with Clark more so they be together. Because it's getting kind of old that he's saving her all the time, and that's like one of the few people you see him save over and over again. That he's able to save. Speaking of saving, before the Capitol scene, I really loved the montage of him saving everyone and dealing with his struggles. But Lex is just a bastard. When they got Martha Kent, like, that really got to me. The music, everything. Now, speaking of the music, Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL do an amazing job with the music. Not only is it action-packed, but it has an emotional center to it. Some parts remind me a bit of the Dark Knight score, or Batman Begins, and then other parts are just great. Wonder Woman's theme's good. Issue with You, Black and Blue's a good track. Stuff like that. This is my world, but it's nice that Hans Zimmer came up with another type of Batman theme, with some Danny Elfman elements from it, considering he did Dark Knight trilogy. Now, before going on to Batman, they really set up his motivations, probably the most out of any other character. I also liked the beginning scene. At first, I was like, why did they show the Waynes getting murdered? But they did it in such a visual way. And Zack Snyder's a really great visual director. He did a great job of blending the fantasy elements into reality, like I said earlier, but it's like a comic book page out. And the beginning part really reminded me of like the opening of Watchmen, or like when the comedian died and the Watchman smiley face pendant was spinning. It reminded me of that with Martha and the pearls. And then Jeffrey D. Morgan. I like how Thomas Wayne actually tried to fight back and then got shot. That was a nice touch. But it reflected the exact images you saw in the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel with the gun and pearls. And it was such an emotional scene. And we haven't really seen him killed in that way in live action. And then I loved how it correlated with the editing with him falling. Now, those type of scenes with montages were edited really well, but as far as, like, in between, the flow wasn't good. And another thing that hurt it is that they kept on fading to black, like, over and over and over, more than any other theatrical film I've seen. It's just like, oh, we didn't film these parts, so there's just, like, a giant chunk missing, so we're just going to go here to here. But it wasn't hard to follow. It was just a little odd. The only times I really liked it is during flashbacks or dream sequences or visions. That was explanatory, but I mean, that made sense, but it was just too much. But I really like those elements of Batman. I love the opening where the cops are there. He saves the people who are victims of trafficking, and the police are there, and I loved it. It was kind of like Alien. Not really as far as scary, but him sneaking up and then him just like on the wall there all of a sudden, and then just like running when the guy was trying to shoot him. It was really cool. Branding them is another type of brutality that's new, but it works. It's not like he's doing it to innocent people. He's doing it to criminals and scum, so it works for me. And then I like Gal Gadot stuff. Wonder Woman, she did great. She could have been in it more. She could have been omitted, but you know what? I liked it. It was a nice bit of change, and it kind of connected to what they were going for at the end. And I liked how they showed her Diana before Wonder Woman. And what I love more than anything on Superman, not only does it show his effect on people, but it shows the effect, both negative and positive, on Batman, and also the effect on Wonder Woman. How like certain events in their past kind of made them who they are at the beginning of the film, but they find hope or are inspired by him, and they change or decide to start fighting for what they used to believe in again. And I like that. But anyway, the main fight, he pretty much has Martha Kent, and Lex Luthor knows that Superman is Clark Kent. They don't say how, but you know, he's a smart guy. He was keeping tabs on the metahumans, so he probably figured it out. Not only that, he probably saw that like he saves Lois Lane all the time, and the fact that Clark Kent's there, he probably did some facial recognition. I remember there was issue 2 in the 80s series they had where Lex Luthor actually figured out Superman's secret identity as Clark Kent through a computer. But it was interesting. That was a different angle, and Lex Luthor never figures out that it's Clark Kent, so that was really cool and added stakes that it was Martha there. And the pictures there and the music was just grueling. So he says, like, kill the bat or she dies. And Superman, it's not like a straight up fight movie, and that's what I love about it. I mean, I would have loved the movie either way if they gave us a stupid reason for them to fight. If it was like Alien versus Predator or something. But they gave a realistic and logical way for them to fight one another. And Superman doesn't even want to fight him. He's just like, I don't want to kill this guy. I don't want to fight this guy. I'm trying to make this guy understand that I'm not the bad guy. And I love some of the banter between Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent earlier at the party and stuff. But they go there and it's just like, holy shit. It's a really great fight. It's pretty much Dark Knight Returns live action. And they both take their share of punches. And it was a nice touch of kryptonite in this. Me and some other people were wondering, including some of my viewers, how kryptonite was going to be in this. And I suspected with the terraforming in the Indian Ocean that it's making it like Krypton, so maybe part of Krypton will be on Earth as kryptonite. And sure enough, they did that. And that was nice. And it was nice of Batman stealing it and then weaponizing it into a vapor. That was more like the animated version of Dark Knight Returns rather than an arrow. And that was just crazy. The fight was great. And ultimately, it tugs at the heartstrings, not only in shocking moments, but with Martha. And some people have been saying it's stupid, but it really is not. I mean, what are the chances of the same name, right? But two things it does. It makes Batman realize that he's basically like the person that's pulling the trigger now, that killed Martha, and he's like about to kill Superman. And another thing it does is it shows like he remembers when his mother died. And he's thinking about Clark and his mother about to die, and he knows what that does to an individual. So that really is an emotional moment where he has a sense of clarity. Not only what he's become himself, but how he became that way. So he's just like, I'm going to help you. And then Lois pleads there saying, don't kill him. And he just throws the spear away, and that was such a deep and emotional moment. And it starts getting really great when they work together. And they realize that Lex has been manipulating them the whole time. My only beef with this scene coming up was Lois threw the spear, right? Great. So why did she have to go back and get out the damn water? It would have been better if they just left the spear on the ground. She left somewhere to the Daily Planet or somewhere else, or just waited around there. And Superman and Batman went, and then say with all the earthquakes with Doomsday, it just fell in, and then they're like, oh shit, where did it go? It's not on the ground, and then it's in the water. That would have made more sense than doing something, and then leaving, and then coming back for no apparent reason. I enjoyed watching it. It was nicely shot, but it was just that was just not needed. You could have saved us 10 minutes and used 10 more minutes of them fighting Doomsday. But I digress. Anyway, the scene, we saw it in the trailer where he saves Martha Kent was just amazing. That was basically Batman Arkham. Freaking AR challenge initiated. It was great. And it really shows us how powerful the Batsuit is in this. Now, it looks like it's just kind of cheap rubber, but it's resistance to knives, and then him getting shot in the head and it bouncing off the cowl is just wow. That must be a pretty powerful suit, and then him just breaking a shitload of limbs was great. And I love when he gets a flamethrower and kills that guy to save Martha. And people were like, oh, why did he do that? He killed him. Technically, yeah, but he was going to kill Martha. But it was also a nod, again, to Dark Knight Returns, where it's just I'm going to kill her, I'm going to kill her. It's just I know you will. And it just, takes him out. And I love just, you're a friend of Clark's? And he's just yeah, and it's just the cape. Earlier, I also liked the Batmobile chase. I wish it was a little bit better shot. It was a little bit shaky cam, but it wasn't bad. It was really nice use of CGI and practical effects. And I also liked how Superman arrived out of nowhere, because in the previews, it made it seem like Batman was a dumbass for just trying to run over Superman, but he just got in his way there. So that was nice. And then the whole "do you bleed" line. But anyway, they go back to the fight, and then Superman confronts Lex, and then that's when the Doomsday thing happens, and that just gets crazy. Not too much out of hand, just a really entertaining fight, but he's out of it. I loved how he went to space, so it shows the development of the character and him learning from the mistakes at the beginning of the movie and in the end of Man of Steel. And then it was sad when the government nuked him, and that was almost a homage again to Dark Knight Returns with the nuke. but I like Doomsday in that, and they get some elements, like I said in my other review, of different graphic novels. It could have just made adaptation of stories, but I like how they just borrowed from here and there and there, and then just kind of put it into one story, or at least tried to. And then they nuke him, and then Batman's left there, and then he's like by himself, and he's like, I need to get him to the city. There's a weapon there. I'm out of Kryptonian weapons. And that's great because, like, he's against this giant thing which could easily kill him. And he's just like, well, Superman's out of commission. There's nobody here, so I might as well try to take this thing out since I have the weapons. And then I love the oh shit line. It's so realistic, but what's better was Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot arriving, chains. It was just so great. And it was exciting seeing the Trinity. It was cool seeing Superman regenerate, not only foreshadowing what's going to happen after the end of the movie, but it was also a homage to Dark Knight Returns. And just that last fight, that third act, sure, it was CGI and stuff, but you know what? It was really well done, and it was an emotional finale. The music, everything. It was just an intense third act. And it was nice seeing the holy DC Trinity together for, like, the first time. And it's just like 3 members of the Justice League. Don't even have Aquaman, Cyborg, Flash, or Martian Manhunter, or Green Lantern on there yet, so who knows what's going to happen in the future. But they get the spear back. He saves Lois once again, but I love the time of romance they have and him realizing that he's going to have to take this thing down. And it's a touching scene, really, and it's emotional. And the movie really kind of got to my heartstrings on more than one occasion, not only in intensity, but like how powerful of a hero Superman is. And no matter how good or bad humanity is, he'll always be here to like save us, to make sure we're safe. And that's just sad knowing that in a hero that despite all that, he's deep down a good enough person to still fight for us. So that was an emotional scene with Doomsday and then him getting stabbed by the bone of Doomsday's hand and then the spear. And very Death of Superman-like. A little bit early on, but you know what? I liked it for what it was, and it's cool that they're making their own story with stuff. And then the funeral part happens, and that pretty much was like World Without Superman right off the pages. Right off the pages. And then Lex. It reminded me of Season 3 Smallville and the finale where Lionel Luthor was in prison. They're shaving his head. So that was pretty cool. We got to basically see him become the Lex Luthor. Now, he may be like more like the comics, but I'm kind of thinking he's not going to be all the way corporate Lex. He's going to be more of like the Legion of Doom Lex Luthor we saw in Super Friends and stuff. It was nice Batman not branding him because it shows that between that and then him and Wonder Woman talking about enlisting the Justice League, that he's regained his faith in humanity again thanks to Superman. And Wonder Woman has decided to fight for humanity again thanks to Superman. So it shows the changes. The scene where Lois gets the wedding ring from Martha Kent was touching and just sad. And that kind of had a Watchmen vibe too with the grave, but I love all the setups for the end. I don't know what ding 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 means. It might be the mother box little ping sound from the comics, but I love how the devil's sign and angel portrait from the beginning was backwards and it basically hitting Darkseid. And who knows, Lex may have known about Darkseid all along and they're planning something together, or maybe he learned through it from the database of the Kryptonian ship that Zod had. That was Clark's in the Arctic. But it kind of ends on a cliffhanger, kind of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where you just see like in the dirt and him basically about to come back to life. Overall, it was a mixed bag, but I give it an 8 out of 10 and a 3.5 out of 4 stars. I didn't think it was nearly as bad as what the critics said, and I said in my other review, I agree with Richard Roper, Peter Travers off the Rolling Stone magazine, and the Forbes magazine review. It does have its share of flaws, but some people are nitpicking the hell out of it. And I feel Man of Steel, it started with Dark Knight Rises and so-called plot holes, or what people think plot holes are. And Man of Steel and Batman Superman. And I don't mind it, but it's kind of hypocritical when there's like other movies. But because they're fun and have humor, they're kind of like forgiven for their flaws. But no movie is without flaws. I enjoyed it, and I feel it was a film for the fans. And Zack Snyder does an amazing job visually. They can just do a better job next time in the story, and maybe just stop trying to put too much into one movie before it gets too carried away. Just focus on parts, and then just elaborate on those parts and flesh out those parts more, and you'll have a stronger film. And maybe if you do that, maybe you can just add some stuff afterwards. Like, who cares? At least part of it's like really, really good, and just like add a bit of extra, icing to it. But it's like complaining about having too much icing on your cake. But as a DC fan, I was happy. As a movie fan, I was happy. I was happy not laughing a whole bunch of times and it being like a serious film. I felt like I was watching a film. I felt like I was watching a real film. I don't know where people said it was cartoony. Some parts might have been, but it wasn't Batman Forever, and it was sure a lot better than Batman and Robin. And if it's like a cartoon, then you must have a really dark sense of humor, or like really like some screwed up cartoons between like the capital C and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's a cartoon. But anyway, I enjoyed it. This is just my thoughts. I also think Lawrence Fishburne did a good job as Perry White. Before I go, Perry White was great. I love his little 1938 line because that's when Superman was created, and some of the other stuff. I almost wonder if he suspects Superman is Clark Kent because he's like, Clark Kent's not here, and Lois is like, no, and she's like, They probably all know. I don't know. It was nice seeing Ginny Olsen again. It was nice seeing the Journal be the Secretary of State now. But overall, it wasn't a perfect movie. It wasn't the movie I was expecting, but I have to say, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. And judging by the second trailer and stuff, I thought it was going to be really, really bad and just like Batman and Robin territory. But it wasn't quite there. And Ben Affleck did a great job as Batman, but the one I was really surprised at was Henry Cavill. I know they said his stuff was wooden, but for me, he really embodied more of Superman and his struggle. And I really like to see the character develop more. And then Zack Snyder's direction, I thought, was really good. He's had some better films. I like Watchmen a bit better, but this wasn't too bad. It just might have been too much stuff in one movie. But overall, I really liked it. It was a good follow-up, and I hope it does well enough for him to direct Justice League and stuff. Even if we don't get that many movies in the DC universe, just something to where this is heading. I love to see the Injustice story fleshed out more. Maybe with Flash, it's kind of like the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Maybe we're gonna have multiverses now, where like Christian Bale's, Michael Keaton's, Smallville's universe, like all the universes are true. They're just in different Earths. So we'll see. But yeah, I enjoyed it much better than I thought it was, and I did my review of my Dark Knight of Steel channel in this spoiler review just to give my thoughts as a fan. But not only that, to give positive word. I feel like this film is just it's really underrated. And I feel like it's getting negative backlash to like the maximum degree more than it should. I don't see all the hate. I really think it's people who are just pissed off at the movie. Either they had too much expectations, haven't read a comic book, or they just hate DC. In which that case, screw them. But it's nice having different interpretations. And again, if you want something more of the source material, read a comic. This was pretty close. It took a lot of stuff and modernized it. And I don't know why people were complaining about like kids not being able to see it. I'm like, they better not do this because last time they had the whole like Batman Kills and Batman Returns being dark, and then they Happy Mealed it with like Joel Schumacher's Batman. He had nipples on his suit and stuff. We don't need that. We don't need that. The darker Batman is, the better. Hip hip hooray. I'm fine with it. As long as he's not like campy and just like the Joel Schumacher 60s Batman. Unless it's like intentional. But this shouldn't complain. It's PG-13, and second of all, the last three Batmans, like I said in my other review, wasn't for kids. But I liked it being more mature, and it was a surprise. So yeah, those are just my thoughts. My throat kind of hurts. I hope I didn't forget anything, but we'll see. Those are just what I thought of the film. It really got to my heartstrings a bit more than I thought it would, and yeah. I look forward to seeing the R-rated version that's extended on Blu-ray July 16th. But if you've seen it, agree or don't agree, that's fine with me. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just wanted to share my opinion, and then it's not that bad of a movie. Not 30%. We live in a world where Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Superman Returns has a higher rating than Batman v Superman. I don't know. But I liked it, and it sure filled the hole in my heart that other blockbuster films are well loved made. So yep, that's my thoughts. This is Frederick Lopez signing out, and yeah, you're entitled to your own opinion. If you somehow saw this spoiler video without seeing the movie, Don't listen to me. Don't listen to critics. Go see it. Or if you've seen it, like it, things you liked about it, didn't, go see it again. I may see it one more time. It's just long. It's a really long movie where I might wait to see it multiple times on Blu-ray. So, yep. Signing out.
We could have changed the world. Now look at us. I've become a political liability. And you're a joke. I want you to remember Clark, and all the years to come, in your most private moments. I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you.